Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the West Point Relinquishment of Command and Retirement Ceremony for the 59th Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslen, Jr. During the ceremony, you'll be asked to stand and render appropriate courtesies for honors in our national anthem. It's appropriate for civilians to stand with their right hand over their heart, and for military personnel and veterans to stand at the position of attention. At this time, we'll have a momentary pause, awaiting the arrival of the official party. The momentary pause will be replaced by a 5-minute pause.
Like that. So Kraetzer for CBS. And it's Gen Kraetzer for Sons of American Legion Radio. We're at West Point today. Special day, the retirement ceremony for Superintendent Lieutenant General Robert Caslen, 59th Superintendent of West Point. 43 years of service in the United States Army, former commandant here at West Point, served in Iraq in many capacities in the Army. Very athletic, always led cadets out on runs, and even the faculty worked on improving the infrastructure, improving the academic side, the introduction of more liberal arts into the programs here at West Point, and then also building athletics. 2 victories over Navy that he is very proud of, and a day at the White House and the Pentagon in May that everyone will remember for a long, long time. And it's Gen Kraetzer for Sons of American Legion Radio at West Point today, the retirement ceremony for the Superintendent, Lieutenant General Robert Caslen, 43 years service in the United States Army that finish up today with a gala ceremony here at Eisenhower Hall. Lieutenant General Caslen worked very hard. He was a commandant here, served in Iraq just before serving here as superintendent. Worked on improving academics, the infrastructure of the academy, the new dormitory named for General Davis, and of course the 2 wins over Navy in football. Big improvements in athletics. So lots to be proud of, and a big turnout. To understand the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Milley, will be here. This is Gen Kraetzer for Sons of American Legion Radio at West Point. You got to keep it under 45 seconds. Yeah. So Phil will do. That one out.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party, playing of honors, our national anthem, and the invocation. The official party consists of the 39th Chief of Staff of the Army, General Mark A. Milley, and the 59th Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslen, Jr. General Milley has deferred honors to Lieutenant General Caslen for this morning's ceremony. invocation by Chaplain Palikowski.
Almighty God, you have given us some people whose lives are more readily admired than imitated. This morning we've recognized one such life, Lieutenant General Bob Caslen. In ever-increasing positions of responsibility, complexity, and very often danger, has, for 43 years, kept up a pace that simply boggles those around him. He has done so happily, considering himself lucky enough to be allowed to continue to serve. For over 40 years, he and Shelly have faithfully fulfilled their commitment to each other in marriage for the betterment of all people and families around them. From them, we all have learned. We are eager to hear from our Supe the hard-won wisdom he has earned. And we are glad this morning, in the light of your face, to honor General Bob Caslen and his family.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. This morning, a bouquet of red roses in full bloom is being presented to Mrs. Caslen from the West Point family as a symbol of the care and concern she's shown to the cadets, soldiers, civilians, and families of West Point over the past 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the official party will now move forward for the relinquishment of command. Since the beginning of recorded history, military leaders have used a visible symbol of authority around which to rally their command. The very soul of the military unit is symbolized by the colors under which it fights. For the colors record achievements of the past, stands as a guardian over its present destiny, and ensure inspiration for its future. The colors serve as a proud emblem of our history. The ceremonial passing of the United States Military Academy colors symbolizes the relinquishment of command and responsibility of West Point from Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslen, Jr. The relinquishment of command will begin as Lieutenant General Caslen receives the colors from Command Sergeant Major Kenny. The passing of the colors from Lieutenant General Caslen to General Milley represents the relinquishment of the United States Military Academy and West Point's senior leadership position. General Milley now returns the colors to Command Sergeant Major Kenny, signifying the completion of Lieutenant General Caslen's duties as the 59th United States Military Academy Superintendent. By authority of paragraph 2-5, Army Regulation 600-20, Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslen, Jr. is relinquished of command of the United States Military Academy and the West Point Military Reservation, West Point, New York, effective 22 June 2018. Please welcome the 39th Chief of Staff of the Army, General Mark A. Milley.
By my incredible marching skills, as you just demonstrated here with the Supe, you can probably tell I'm not a grad, so. Hey, I want to welcome everyone here. For me, personally, this is a little bit like the tale of two cities, where it's the best of times and the worst of times. And I personally am saying goodbye to a longtime friend, Bob Caslen, and you, this great institution of West Point, saying also the best of times, because the Army moves on, as we do, and we're going to welcome a new Supe here shortly, touch wood, fingers crossed on confirmation, and the Caslens will move on to a new chapter in life. But this is a sad day and a good day, all at the same time. And I know that everyone here understands those emotions and those feelings, and I want to welcome everyone here. Bob's got a large and extended family here, almost the entire state of Connecticut, Vermont, and Florida, and Illinois are here. So thanks for all of you being here, and I'll have a few more words to say. I want to thank, where's the Dean? Dean Jeb, where you at? There, thank you for your leadership. And where's Gillen at? Where you at there, brother? Thank you, and in a few minutes you own this bad boy, so. I'll close this up, son. May not last for long. Boop Corrigan, somewhere out here. Boop, thank you for your leadership as well, and the entire athletic department, the entire academic department, all the faculty, everyone that's here. I want to particularly give a shout out to all the Command Sergeant Majors, both the President Sergeant Majors and Pats, who are here. Without your support, these cadets would not rise to the level of merit that they achieve when they graduate, without all the non-commissioned officers that support this academy. So thanks also to you. Board of Visitors is here somewhere, and I know you're sprinkled out throughout the crowd, but you play a very, very critical role in the governance process of the United States Military Academy, so thank you all for being here. I do want to thank an arch rival. Where's Slapstick at? Where you at there, brother? There he is back there. He's the guy in the ice cream suit. So, sorry, that's the uniform of Naval Admiral. I am a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, so my mother was in the Navy, so my dad was a Marine, that's why I came in the Army, in fact. So, Ted Garner's a great American, and he's starting his 5th year, by the way, at the United States Naval Academy, a hockey player. And they are 0-2 in the alumni hockey game in Washington, D.C. And Ted is captain their team against the Army team that we put together. But thanks, Ted, for being here, and your lovely wife, and representing the great teamwork between the Naval Academy and the Military Academy. Thank you. I don't know if former Undersecretary of the Army, Murphy, is here. Are you floating around? You were out here, supposed to come here? Pat Murphy? No? Okay, so, but I know he wants to be here, and maybe he'll show up at the tail end. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and everyone here is distinguished. Lots of generals, lots of sergeants majors, lots of colonels, many, many cadets. Thanks for being here. And everyone knows why we're here. So we're here to honor and not only do the transition of command, but also to retire Supe. And I was the guy who said Bob Caslen was Supe for life, and we were going to bury you in a cemetery out here. So I got half wrong and half right. So you're not going to be Supe for life because you're not dead yet, but we are going to bury you in the cemetery. So I think that's good. And everybody knows, I mean, maybe you don't know. I don't know. Does everyone know how old Caslen? I mean, Caslen's like old, right? So, you know, I don't know if you know it, but this year, and I checked, by the way, back in D.C. with the IRS and others. This year, he actually registered for Social Security. Check that out. I'm not kidding. And I checked his mail because I have access to all kinds of intelligence services, so I can get into people's mail. And I checked, and he's actually a recipient of the AARP magazine. That's true. So, and where's class of 75? Where you at? That was so weak. So, I'm from Boston, right? So, you know, there was a famous day there, 18 April, 1775, when Paul Revere goes out, rides, gets the militia going, all that kind of stuff. And Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a poem, right? So he said the famous day of the 18th of April in 75, and hardly a man is now alive. And that's true of the class of 75. And as you just heard it, hardly a man is now alive. So let's hear this class of 75 one more time. So a little bit of life, guys. A little bit of life. That's good. So, you know, in 1975, Bob Caslen graduated from the United States Military Academy, along with Class 75, and there were 5,309 lieutenants that were commissioned that year from ROTC, OCS, and West Point. And this guy right here in the front row is the last man standing. And that's a pretty impressive record for a single individual. So. Bob Caslen's age and so on, this guy is in smoking shape. And the cadets know it. He reportedly beat 72% of all cadets. I know he beat the daylights out of Gillen, former Delta Force and all this sort of stuff, right? So Caslen took him to the woodshed. He smoked him on the obstacle course, beat him square up, man on man, mano a mano sort of thing in boxing. And you were both wearing like dresses or something like that? Is that what happened? So I wasn't witness to that. That's from the reports I get. So pretty impressive. This is a guy that we all know is got many, many years ahead of him. And he's going to be a distinguished leader and a soldier for life in his second career after retirement today. Bob, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone. In many ways, our nation's history, from the very beginning, from the days of 1775, parallels the walls and the ramparts of West Point. And in many ways, our history, our nation's history, since 1975, parallels the career of Bob Caslen. If you look out these windows behind you, everybody here knows, you've got Constitution Island sitting there in the Hudson River, and it was a critical part of the defense of West Point when George Washington was here with the Continental Army on the plain. And the Great Chain that everyone knows about stretched across the river in order to prevent the British. Do we have any British officers here, by the way? We're our 243rd birthday in the United States Army. I want to thank you for your ability to lose that war, so thank you. So the chain goes across and prevents the Brits from getting up the river, and that was a strategic asset for the United States. And I will tell you that since that time, and since the Academy first opened its doors there under Thomas Jefferson in 1802, this Academy has played an unbelievably outsized role in the history of our country in so many ways that are recorded in the history books, in so many other ways that have never been recorded. I will tell you that this school, this Academy, the United States Military Academy at West Point, I'm an ROTC guy, but I'm telling you, this place here is the C-O-R-E, the core of our Army. And no one should ever mistake that. I know what the mission statement says, and I know we're here to train and educate and produce officers who are committed to the values of duty, honor, country, but it's something even bigger than that, in my mind. The mission of this school is beyond just that. The mission of this school is to continue to be the core, the C-O-R-E of our Army. This school is the standard bearer of the United States Army from day one, from way back in the day. That's what this school has done. You at this school are setting the standards for the officer corps of the United States Army. And I will tell you that the standards have been set extraordinarily high. And I will tell you that under Bob Caslen's leadership, they have remained high, and there's a tremendous amount of energy and momentum that has developed here in the last 5 years. And Bob, we want to thank you for that as well. Your leadership here as the 59th Superintendent has been absolutely extraordinary in every way imaginable. And I'm not just saying that because you're my friend and I've known you, we served together in peace and war. I'm saying it because it's the truth. It's factually correct. And I didn't go here, cadet will not lie, cheat or steal, so I ain't lying. This is factually correct. Your leadership here has been outstanding, and you're going to go down as one of the great superintendents of this great academy, this national treasure for the United States of America. And I will tell you that Bob is a Supe daddy. He's a leader, a great warrior. He's a statesman, a scholar, and above all, in my view, and I know him well, he's a man of immense character. And I am proud personally, and I know I speak for everyone in this room, to call Bob Caslen our teammate and our lifelong friend. His life, his time of service starts before he ever shows up at West Point for his plebe year. He gets his sense of service in so many ways from his father, who's a World War II Army veteran of the Battle of the Bulge. And then Bob was raised, as you all know, up in Vermont, the independent country of Vermont. And during his teenage years, he hung out at a ski resort up in that small town. And actually, Vermont is closer to Montreal than to any other major American city. Although they're closer to Montreal, though, the Caslen's allegiance was always to the New England Patriots and the Boston Red Sox, so we do thank you for that. Shelly, that is true. You know it's true. In fact, Shelly, not to digress, you can get what they, I don't know if there's any professors of history here, this is a little known fact. This is true, I'm not making this up. Little known fact that the Massachusetts southern boundary, back in the day, right, before 1776, that extended all the way to the Mississippi River. All of northern New York, to include this school, is actually part of Massachusetts. You didn't know that. So you're actually in the Red Sox nation, Shelly. You are born and raised. You're a card-carrying Red Sox fan. Thank you very much for that. Hey, look at, and not only was Bob's dad in service, his brother Mark. Is Mark here, by the way? Where are you at? There you are, thank you. He's a veteran of the United States Air Force. Chose not to go in the Army, chose an alternative to military service. So, we thank you dearly for that. Michael, on the other hand, at least he faced up to the fact he just stayed a civilian the entire time. So, good on both of you, but thank you. And here at West Point, Brother Caslen, he had a whole series of ski skills that he acquired there on the ski slopes of Vermont, and that translated into a great way to escape the demands of the school here. And he joined the ski club, and he was on ski patrol for 4 years. I didn't even know he had a ski club up here. I thought we only did that kind of stuff at Princeton, but that's good. And he was also not only a good athlete in terms of skiing, but everyone knows he was the center on the friendly fields of strife there playing football for the brave old Army team. And in his day, you went, by my historical record and checking on Siri, you were 2-2 against Navy back in the day. And unfortunately, one of those losses was 51-0 against Navy. So I won't hold that against you, but that will never ever be repeated up here. But it is true. And I don't know how many of you also know it, but Caslen's been a really important standard bearer of ironclad discipline here at West Point. But it was a whole lot different back in the 70s when he was here. For the current cadets, when he was here, that didn't apply. Go back and check his haircut. I don't have a photo to put up on the wall. You've probably already seen it, but it was something else. And not only that, but he lived in, and I got this from reliable sources like your classmates, who threw you under the bus many times last night. And, he lived in something called the Bachelor's Officers' Quarters in Old South Barracks. Now, I don't have personal knowledge of that, so this is all being relayed to me by an A1 source. But apparently no tactical officers ever entered or allowed to enter the BOQ. That's a big difference. So all the current cadets, you could use that against Gillen. And according to one of my unnamed sources, Forrest Crane, Caslen never cleaned his room, ever. In fact, they were far too busy hanging out the window, looking at the various students from other nearby colleges as they entered West Point and walked around the academy. So despite playing football, despite skiing, and despite all the visitor watching, Cadet Caslen did manage to eke it out. He's a 2-0-go guy, and he had 152 hours on the area. Again, that's public knowledge. This is all true. Everything I'm saying is true. So, and then of course he gets commissioned in the infantry, and he gets commissioned just, I guess it was about 35 days or so after the fall of Saigon. Pretty tumultuous time in Army history, right immediately following the Vietnam War. Our Army struggled, and Bob Caslen entered into that. And early on, he proved himself to be an incredible warrior. He earned a reputation for tactical skills, both at the lieutenant and company commander level, where he commanded in the 9th Infantry Division, an experimental division at that time, up at Fort Lewis. Later, he gets selected, a very tight shot group, only 5% selection rates for battalion command. Commands the 1st Battalion, 14th Infantry of the Great 25th Division out in Hawaii. And I had an opportunity to converse with his then division commander, Bob Warden. And he said that Bob Caslen took what he, in his mind as a division commander, was the lowest rated battalion in the division and turned it around in 6 months to be the best rated battalion in the division. Pretty impressive for a young officer. And then later, he did so well at battalion command, we, the Army, decided to pick him up for brigade command. And here I have personal knowledge that he was an incredible brigade commander as Strike 6, 502nd in the 101st. And then he goes off to a place not far from here, Fort Drum, as a chief of staff of the Great 10th Mountain Division, gets selected as general officer, goes to be the deputy commanding general, 3rd ID, and then he gets a very rare appointment. He gets picked up as the commanding general of the United States Army Division, one of only 10 divisions, and he gets assigned as a CG out there in Hawaii with the Tropic Lightning Division of the 25th. Through it all, Bob Caslen served 42 months in combat. Now think about that for a minute. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941, and we did just under 36 months of consecutive combat in World War II. Both my parents were in World War II. There are many folks in this room whose parents or grandparents served in World War II. An incredibly difficult, the biggest war in all of history. But Bob Caslen served 42 months in combat. An incredible record. He was a battalion XO in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and we have Fred Franks here, who was a great 7th Corps commander at the time. He served in Haiti during Operation Uphold Democracy and Chief of Staff of the 10th Mountain, Task Force Mountain in Afghanistan, and of course, he served a full tour as a division commander for the 25th Division in combat in Iraq. He understands combat. He understands the crucible of ground combat. He understands the sacrifice in blood, and treasure, and tears that we Americans commit to the cause of freedom around the world. And he also understands something else. He understands that in combat, winning matters. He understood that as a cadet on the football team. He understood that in command at multiple echelons. He's understood that in combat, and he's understood that and demonstrated it here as the superintendent. He understands that singing second matters. He understands there's no place for second place, especially in the conduct of war. And he brought that winning spirit back here to the United States Military Academy, where you know full well that you beat Navy, Ted, twice in a row and brought the Commander-in-Chief's trophy back here. So that's an incredible achievement. Winning is a lot more than a football game. He brought the spirit of winning across all the athletics up here, cycling, judo, fencing, boxing, karate, crew, and a whole bunch more. A whole bunch of national championships came to West Point. He brought winning into the spirit of academic achievement. So Bob Caslen reinvented or re-energized the entire idea of winning back at West Point. And for that, we can always be thankful. But he's more than just a warrior and more than just a leader. He's a great statesman, a true intellectual, an academic. He is one of our nation's leading academics, in fact, leading a large national institution. As a statesman, you may not know this, but he was Secretary of State Pompeo's tactical officer. I talked to Pompeo, well, Secretary of State Pompeo, now I can't call him Mike or Pompeo or whatever, but the Secretary of State relayed to me that Caslen, for whatever reason, didn't take a liking to him. And he actually slugged him with a 20-hour slug one time. I don't know if that's accurate or just false memories, but that's what the Secretary told me. So, but good on you for doing that, by the way. Yeah, you just don't, did you? You know, Bob also, in a statesman role, on a more serious note, he spent a considerable amount of time in the Office of Security Cooperation over in Iraq, 21 months, in fact, almost 2 years in Iraq, where he reported directly to the ambassador. He insisted the Iraqi army get stood up. He was dealing with senior leaders of the U.S. government, the Iraqi government, and many others. And that kind of work, for those of you who had seen that kind of work, that requires the utmost in diplomatic skills, utmost in patience and tact, and a keen understanding of all the nuances of Iraqi society, all the tribal, sectarian, and political aspects of that society. And that was a clear demonstration of his statesmanlike capabilities. He also recognized the rapidly changing character of war. He understood the type of war we were fighting in, and he was agile enough in his thinking and his actions to do that. As you all know, he went on to lead the Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, and CGSC, and the entire schoolhouse out there, which is our lead organization for all of our doctrine and academic development in the Army. He established the Centers of Excellence throughout all of the institutions at Fort Benning and Fort Leavenworth and so on. He established the Combating Terrorism Center here, the Army Cyber Institute, and he has done so much in terms of academic innovation in the institutional Army when he was a member of TRADOC, and then here at the United States Military Academy. Not only is he a tactical warrior, not only is he a great personal leader, he's an incredible academic leader and innovator as well. He understands the battlefield. He understands what's required of our tomorrow's leaders. He understands that we need officers who can adapt, who are intellectually curious, who are critical thinkers, and he did that in his 5 years at West Point. He is a leader by example. We already talked about his fitness and beating up the poor commandant there in boxing, but he's more than that. He's a leader by example with the cadets on a day-to-day basis. Bob Caslen was out there mentoring and personally coaching and teaching the cadets. And each year, West Point actually graduates, if you think about it, from an Army perspective, it graduates 2 groups of people. We graduate the cadets, but we also graduate the field grade officers and company grade officers from the faculty that come back into the Army. And Bob Caslen did a wonderful job mentoring not just the cadets, but also the faculty up here. And for that, his legacy is going to live on for many, many years to come. So I would tell you that Caslen's time here at West Point is really an era that will go down in the history books of West Point for what he's done. As a warrior, as a scholar, a statesman, and as a leader. In all of these roles, there was something else, though, that separated Bob Caslen from the rest of us, in my view. And that is his character. Bob Caslen is a guy who literally lives the code of duty, honor, and country. He is a guy who has incredible integrity, even when things may not be going well. This is a guy who takes personal responsibility when things aren't going well. He steps up to the plate. This is a guy who never, ever, ever blames a subordinate for anything that goes wrong. He takes personal responsibility for that. It's incredible, actually, to see the level of integrity that Bob Caslen displays. And he has a deep and really unconditional love for this academy and all that it stands for. His integrity, his character, his skills are actually beyond words. And there's one final character trait that Bob Caslen displays that, frankly, I think stands in stark relief to much of what you see in today's newspapers and headlines. In ancient Greece, there was a crime called hubris. And it was a crime by which the people would accuse the rich and the powerful. And what it meant was that you walked by a mirror too many times and you couldn't, stop and, take yourself in, and you started falling in love with yourself and started thinking your stuff didn't stink You didn't put your pants on the same way. You started thinking the rules didn't apply to you. You were above the law and so on. That was hubris, and the people didn't like that. They would accuse the rich and the powerful of that, and then they would be exiled. Luckily, there's an antidote to hubris that all of us should practice and take to heart. And it comes in a little pill form. You get it in bottle form as well. And it's called humility. And all you have to do is pop a humility pill every single day as an antidote to hubris, and you'll be a much better servant leader for our country. Now, Bob Caslen takes that humility pill every day. This is one of the most humble officers I have ever met in all of my almost 40 years of service in this Army. And I would tell you, Bob, that is an example for all of us to emulate. And I would tell you, not only for the cadets, but for 3-star and 4-star generals, it doesn't matter. Your character is something we should all aspire to do. But you know, Bob hasn't done this alone. He's had great help. He's had Jeb, he's had Dylan, he's had Corrigan, he's had Sergeant Major. He had a lot of help from the faculty. And this place wouldn't be what it is without the faculty and all the various administrative departments. And he wouldn't have been able to do it actually without the cadets, because all the cadets pile into that same story. And the cadets own as much of Bob Caslen as he owns of you. But there are some people, though, who have been with Bob Caslen for a long time. And one of them is sitting right next to him, his great wife, Shelly. And they first met when she was secretary here in the athletic department. She was secretary for the football coach. And Caslen had a little cast on his arm, and he was feeling kind of sorry for himself. He wasn't the Caslen we know today, the who guy, right? So he was kind of this wimpy little lieutenant who was in the faculty, and he comes up and he sees Shelly, and I forget exactly what he said, and I'll let you do that later. But yeah, so that was their first encounter. It was right here in the athletic department. So as you know, Shelly's a native of Highland Falls. She's no stranger to West Point. Her father, in fact, served in the Army, and her father was the Supe's, the then Supe's driver. And then they got married 41 years ago in 1977. And thank God you did. Shelly's been part of the Army Bob's entire career. And she's done an incredible act of service on behalf of Army families for 4 decades now, leading family readiness groups at various levels of battalion, brigade, division. She's a master trainer for the Army Family Training Team buildings. She volunteered to strengthen communities throughout the world, volunteered with the Red Cross, the Boy Scouts, and many, many other organizations. And she's been an incredible supporter, as you all know, of Army families here at West Point. She's renowned for her hospitality, making everyone from cadets to generals feel very, very welcome at Quarters 100. She's a mentor in her own right, giving advice and support to the staff and faculty, and becoming essentially the unofficial godmother of all the children here at West Point. In 2003, when Bob Caslen, a little known factoid, was deployed to Afghanistan with the 10th Mountain Division, Shelly helped to host a visit by President Bush to meet Army families. The visit included a VTC with the division's leadership, Buster Hagenbeck, former Supe, downrange in Afghanistan. And the chief of staff of the division, Colonel Caslen, he then thanked the president on the VTC for visiting the Fort Drum families, and then asked for a personal favor. And I was witness to some of this, and he said, "Mr. President, it's been a while since I've seen my wife, so I was wondering if you could be kind enough to kiss her for me." Kind of different, strange. I don't know about an Army colonel asking the President of the United States to kiss his wife, but hey, President Bush did, so it was great. Hey, along with Bob and Shelly, they are also the parents of 3 absolutely wonderful sons who are here. And Rob, who's now 38 years old, is doing one of the most critical jobs in America, and that is an American firefighter down in Savannah, Georgia, in Hinesville, actually just outside of Savannah. Being a cop, being a law enforcement agent, being a firefighter, being a teacher, being a mom. Those are unbelievable jobs. We in uniform think we're the only ones who sacrifice sometimes, those of us in the military. Not true. There are many, many other professions out there who are sacrificing equally as much, and one of them is a firefighter. So, Rob, thank you. Thank you for your service to our nation. And Nick, son number 2, comes in at 36 years old. Nick is also serving his country as a FBI agent in the most dangerous city in America, Washington, D.C. So, Nick, thank you for your service. And Jeff, the youngest of the 3, is in the Army out at Fort Irwin right now in the 11th ACR, and he served a tour in combat in Iraq. All 3 of them are married, and when you know it, their wives are also selfless servants of the nation. Each of them, 2 of them are teachers, and 1 is working in the banking industry. So thank you, all of you, for being wonderful children to your mom and dad. I can tell you that having observed Army families, and from my own to everyone else's, for many, many years now, your dad and your mother could not have done what they've done for as many years of service as they've done. Your unconditional love, your support, your sacrifice as children of an Army soldier. So thank you very much. So I'll close out by just saying that Bob Caslen's legacy here at West Point is going to live for an awful long time. And in fact, it starts here just in a few days, at our day, when the class of 2022 shows up. And they're going to march onto the plane and take their oath as they join the Corps Cadets. And it will be Steve Gillen and hopefully Carol Williams, pending confirmation. That'll be up here bringing them in. But the long gray line is going to be living in the shadow of Bob Caslen. We should make no mistake about that. After 47 years, he's been wearing the cloth of our country. 47 years, almost half a century since the day he showed up at West Point. 43 years of those commissioned served, 15 and a half of those years serving here at West Point as a member of the faculty or the commandant himself or was the superintendent. 42 months in combat. It's an incredible life of service. So I would just say, Bob, to you and to Shelly, may it be said, well done. Go Army, Pete Navy, and we're incredibly proud of you, and we love you both.
Please be seated for the presentation of the awards. Lieutenant General and Mrs. Caslen, please move forward. Mrs. Holly Ann Milley will present Mrs. Caslen with the Distinguished Civilian Service Medal. Attention to orders. Michelle Caslen is awarded the Distinguished Civilian Service Medal for extraordinary contributions in support of the soldiers, civilians, and families of the United States Military Academy from July 2013 through June 2018. During this period, Mrs. Caslen was an active and dedicated proponent of the Army family. She contributed countless hours in support of the Academy's mission, hosting more than 500 national and international visitors, both military and civilian. Shelley was also an invaluable member of the West Point family and community, working with Spouses Club, the Daughters of the United States Army, and various community outreach efforts. An enthusiastic booster for the football team, she attended all games and professionally represented West Point to visiting university leadership. Mrs. Caslen's accomplishments culminate 41 years of selfless service and are a great credit to herself, the United States Military Academy, and the United States Army. Signed, Mark T. Esper, Secretary of the Army. At this time, General Milley will present Lieutenant General Caslen with the Distinguished Service Medal. Attention to orders. This is to certify that the President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress July 9, 1918, has awarded the Distinguished Service Medal to Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslen, Jr., United States Army. for exceptionally meritorious service and a duty of great responsibility from 23 June 2008 to 22 June 2018, given under my hand in the City of Washington this 18th day of June 2018. Signed, Mark A. Milley, General, United States Army, Chief of Staff, and Mark T. Esper, Secretary of the Army. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the publishing of Lieutenant General Caslen's retirement orders. By order of the Secretary of the Army, Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslen, Jr., Superintendent, United States Military Academy, West Point, New York, you are hereby retired from active duty, released from assignment on duty, and on the day following, placed on the retired list. The people of the United States express their thanks and gratitude for your faithful service. Your contributions to the defense of the United States of America are greatly appreciated. Effective 30 June 2018. Signed, Douglas F. Stitt, Brigadier General, United States Army, Director, Officer, Personnel Management Directorate. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. At this time, Lieutenant General Caslen and Mrs. Caslen will be presented with certificates of appreciation. For Mrs. Caslen, to all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that Mrs. Shelly Caslen, on this occasion of the retirement of your spouse from the United States Army, has earned grateful appreciation for your own unselfish, faithful, and devoted service. Your unfailing support and understanding helped make possible your spouse's lasting contribution to the nation. Signed, Mark A. Milley, General, United States Army, Chief of Staff. Lieutenant General Caslen, Certificate of Appreciation for Service in the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Robert Louis Caslen, Jr., Lieutenant General, Infantry. I extend to you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation of our grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history, with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of the military service. I trust that in the coming years you will maintain an active interest in the armed forces and for the purpose for which you served. Those who follow your footsteps will draw inspiration from your commitment, dedication, and sacrifices made to ensure the protection of our American freedoms. My best wishes to you for your happiness and success in the future. Signed, Donald J. Trump, Commander-in-Chief. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, Lieutenant General Caslen will be presented with the flag of the United States of America. This American flag was flown over Taylor Hall, headquarters of the United States Military Academy, West Point, New York, on 4 June 2018. The exact day Lieutenant General Caslen graduated from West Point 43 years ago. This flag is presented in honor of over 4 decades of exemplary service and dedication to the United States Military Academy, the United States Army, and the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Retired Robert L. Caslen, Jr.
General Milley and General Franks, General Daly, General Marks, other distinguished guests, Admiral Carter, Slapstick, sir, thanks for being here. Family, classmates, fellow West Point teammates from the staff, faculty, coaches, administrators, distinguished guests, special guests, and especially the cadets, who are the real reason why we're all here today. Thank you all for attending today's ceremony. You all have honored Shelly and me and our family with your attendance for the relinquishment of command and the retirement of an old soldier. And thanks for your support and recognition and kind words. To tell the truth, it rubs against my conviction that duty is its own reward, and those called to serve should seek no recognition for simply doing their duty. We all owe this great country and our fellow citizens our very best. It was humbling to accept this job 5 years ago, and humbling to turn it over with today. John Milley, sir, thanks for being here. And thank you for your support of West Point over your years as our chief. You may not remember, but one time you said to me, if it were easy, we would have had somebody else. This kind of support and commitment and dedication from you means more than you will ever know. You've been our dear friend. Your presence speaks volumes. The Corps loves you, and I hope you will come back soon and again and again. And on behalf of all of West Point and the entire Corps cadets, thank you. And on behalf of every one of them, they will never let you down. Please join me in thanking our incredible band. I have been and will continue to be your greatest advocate. You are the most outstanding soldiers. You inspire us. Thank you for providing the images and the sounds to always remember this day. You are remarkable, and thank you. When I was thinking about coming to West Point back in 1971, the Vietnam War was still going on, and all my teachers in high school had found ways not to go to war. They were all trying to convince me not to go to West Point because I was going to be one of those old baby killers. But instead I saw some of the opportunities that West Point brings, and I decided to go anyway. I knew I could go for 2 years for free, and at that time when I would have to pay for my own college tuition, it sounded like a good deal. CTLT, or as some of you know it, the 3rd Lieutenant Program, was an important milestone for me. I remember going to Fort Richardson with a platoon that had just come back from Vietnam just that past year. The platoon was a wreck. We were conducting a movement to contact exercise where a group of about 4 or 5 soldiers left the formation and went off to the side of the formation and stopped. And I asked the platoon sergeant what the heck was going on, and he said, "Don't worry about that, sir. They're just smoking some dope and they'll be right back with us." The Army was in shambles back then, but I recall that the soldiers were still thirsting for leadership. Regardless of drug problems, racial, or other ill-discipline incidents, all they wanted was a camaraderie from shared hardships with their brothers and their sisters, and to follow leaders who cared and who would lead from the front. And it was at that moment when I realized that I could do this. And the longer I stayed, the more I was attracted to the brotherhood and the sisterhood and the camaraderie of rain peltering down the back of your neck, freezing your butt off, mosquito bites that just would never quit, and the pure joy of accomplishing a mission knowing that you had the trust and confidence of not only your immediate leaders, but also of our client in the profession of arms, the trust of the American people. I'll never forget Colonel Glenn Marsh, my 1st Battalion commander, and the story he told us lieutenants once of his soldiers looking him in the eye on an airplane as they all flew to Vietnam. He knew they were looking at him knowing that he had done everything in his power to train them and to develop them and to give them every chance of accomplishing their mission and to come back home to their loved ones. And then 10 years later, as we were getting ready to deploy to Desert Shield and Desert Storm, I'll never forget the mother of one of my lieutenants driving 2 days straight to see her son go off to war. And she looked me in the eye to see if I was worthy to lead her son and to bring him back home to his mother. And then there were those who were not able to come home, like the 57 men and women from my division in northern Iraq. I remember holding the body of Lieutenant Dan Hyde soon after he was killed in Iraq. who just a year and a half before that was our 4th Regimental Commander when I was his Commandant here at West Point. And then to be there comforting his mom and dad when the division returned home without their son. I've worn his bracelet not only in his memory so that I will never forget his incredible sacrifice, but also to never forget the sacrifice of the men and women who have served our country for so many years and for so many wars. And I remember Specialist Brandon Morocco's platoon greeting him at the Honolulu airport as Brandon walked off of a plane with 2 prosthetic legs and 2 prosthetic arms to the arms of his waiting platoon in their post-deployment reunion. And earlier I remember standing in the cash operating room on Easter morning when the doctors were trying to save Brandon's life. And 100 soldiers were lined up all night donating 48 pints of blood to keep Brandon alive. 4 months earlier when I visited Brandon and Walter Reed during my R&R leave, Brandon told me that he would be at Schofield to greet his platoon mates when they returned from the deployment. At that time I thought it was not practical for Brandon to be there, but this spunky little fighter would not be denied. And sure enough, with 4 prosthetic limbs, he walked off of that plane to the greeting arms of his entire platoon. There was not a dry eye in the entire airport for those watching this reunion. And there was nothing more that this soldier wanted than to be part once again with his brothers in arms. So today is a day of memories. There has been no shortage that have been flown over these past few days. These memories of 43 years in uniform come in so many different ways. I remember when my father brought me to West Point on our day. The night before, we stayed at my grandfather's house a couple of hours away in Connecticut. And my grandfather rode with my father and me as we drove to report for our day. My grandfather was an immigrant from Italy in the early 1900s. He knew about West Point and what West Point stood for, but he never saw how one of his grandsons could ever get to go to a place like this. And as we got off the 9W heading down the road past the ski slope, he yelled at my father who was driving to stop the car. So my father pulled over and asked him what was up. And he said to my father and me, "I'm getting out. You two keep going and do what you have to do." And then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "I'm not worthy to step foot on West Point. It is sacred ground. You keep going and come back and pick me up later on." And I said, "Grandpa, just get in the car, let's go. It's going to be a long day and you're coming with us." I remember getting off the plane in Doha, Saudi Arabia in Desert Shield with 120 degrees of oven heat blasting us in the face. And then remember living in the desert for 8 months straight, learning how to wash your butt with water and soap in your helmet liner. And I'll never forget the pure joy of coming home, getting off the airplane, hugging my wife and kids, and then watching that captain hug his mom, who had come to see me about a year before that. I'll never forget the faces of old friends and soldiers, non-commissioned officers and mentors. Faces who had lives changed. Faces of those who disciplined me, cared for me, mentored me, and lifted me. You all are here, and you know who you are. And as we sit here in this court this morning at this historic post, at this very moment, West Point graduates are leading from the front as they have over the last 216 years. Away from their families, patrolling the streets of Kandahar, guarding the DMZ, bringing hope and peace to God-forsaken places. They go into harm's way to protect all of America and to stand in the gap. They've succeeded in every mission. I thank each and every one of them for their service to our country. But the greatest honor was to be one of them. And as I reflect, I'm glad that I stayed on past my free 2 years at West Point. But the next decision was whether to stay past the 5-year obligation or not. When I married Shelly 22 months after I graduated, I remember telling her that she only had 3 more years to put up with being an Army spouse. But Shelly and I grew into this, and when that time came to leave, I knew we never could. I fell in love with these soldiers, these men and women who only wanted to serve their country and to be led by leaders who cared and who held them to the highest of standards. They are all Americans, and they all want to be winners and to hang around winners. And sooner than later, I learned that I never wanted to do anything else but to be a soldier. And my dream has been a reality for these last 43 years. Will I miss it? Absolutely. Absolutely. When I look in the rearview mirror, I know I've grown much bigger. I'll miss a steak dinner after an Army win. I'll miss celebrating on the field after beating Navy for the first time in 15 years. Or to win 2 seasons in a row on that epic snowstorm game last December. Sorry, Ted. Thanks for the bathrobe. I'll miss standing next to the Commander-in-Chief Trophy with Boo and Kristen, knowing what it took to be able to stand there in the first place. I'll miss coaches like Homer Smith and Tom Cahill and Jim Young and Jeff Monk. Teammates like Cindy Jebb and Steve Gillen and Rich Clark and J.T. Thompson, Diana Holland, Tim Traynor, Wayne Green, Mark Beeger. Command Sergeant Majors like Command Sergeant Major Gooden, Clark, and Byers. I'll miss my teammate. I'll miss the brotherhood and the sisterhood. We had to get better each day, and I never wanted to let you down. The bonds that we had, it's really what drives you. The Army has taught me not to be led by the obstructionists and the setbacks, and not to be led by the naysayers and the doubters and the quitters. And trust me, there is no shortage of them, and especially in this job, and even to this day. But the Army taught me that if we were going to win our nation's wars, it had to be led by winners. Winners who would lead from the front, and lead with character and with honor. Winners who would lay it on the line and fight with grit and relentless tenacity. Winners who would have your back no matter what. Who will encourage you no matter what. Who will stand next to you in the ugliest of times and prop you up. And if you fell, they would be there to help you up. You know who you are, and I do not know where I would be without you. So to mentors over the years, you have no idea how much I appreciate your sacrifice and commitment, and the role model that you were to me. To have had the opportunity to learn from the General Fred Franks, the Ray Odiernos, or the Marty Dempseys, the General George Caseys and the Mark Milleys, and so many others. I am forever grateful to you. Your daily grind to go out and stand in the gap are lessons I will carry for the rest of my life. And to my teammates, what you did for me is something I'll never forget. To the support staff working tirelessly on my behalf, to the selfless starters and the selfless staffers of the West Point staff whose only desire is to accomplish West Point's mission and to make our cadets look good. I also think you would agree with me that the protocol team has been remarkable. They're quiet professionals whose lot in life means they will only get, like I said last night, they will only get either an A or an F. Well, Jeff marked this day as another A. I wish I could introduce you to my personal staff. In a job like this, at such a frantic pace and with so much travel, we have become a family. Shelly and I have said goodbye to them privately, but I would add just one more thanks. You made me a better superintendent and left an indelible mark on me in the process. To the incredible Bob, Boo Kerrigan and Steve Gillen and Cindy Jebb and Mark, and to our DRUs, in every aspect, in every way, and in every capacity, you have exceeded all expectations. And it is an honor to have stood in your ranks with each of you. I could not be more proud in each and every one of you. Probably more than anything else, I'll miss the cadets. Over the last 5 years, when I got out of bed every morning, I could not help but think how lucky I was. These incredible men and women are all members of the 9/11 generation. A generation that saw their nation attacked and they elected to join the military while the country was at war, knowing full well that they would join a unit deploying to war. They do not waver or question. They quietly stand among the generations that have gone before them, standing in the gap between the evil and the values of our nation and our very way of life. They are all volunteers, every one of them, and our country has put the security of our nation on their backs again and again. And they consider it a privilege to do their duty each and every time. Many in America do not understand the incredible value and worth of this treasure, but that's okay, because this humble yet competent generation would want it no other way. I've also been fortunate to see firsthand the performance of West Point graduates in Iraq and Afghanistan over the last 17 years, especially since leaving as conduct. History will gloriously record what they have accomplished for not only our country, but also for the men and women of a free world who thirst for democracy and seek moderation, toleration, and inclusion for all human beings. These are the men and women who believe in the power of our academy, in our army, and our nation's values. They are the ones who confront the menace of extremism and who seek to expand opportunity and decency for all who thirst it. Few soldiers in our history have faced a greater challenge. But in this challenge, they have reflected the very best of our nation. They have called, and they answered, and has, like generations who have gone before them. And as the prophet Isaiah once said, "Here am I, send me." They will take it to the next level, and they will never let the American people down. Everything I did these past 5 years for one thing: reverence for this team composed of our cadets, who are our future leaders in this incredible generation. With so many friends who have taken the time to be here, Shelly and I are humbled and honored. Many others that could not be here today have written to me these past few days and weeks with thoughts and expressions of lasting friendship that will stay with me forever. To my West Point classmates, courage and drive. I don't know why you came all the way out here for this event, but I am honored. One of you told me it's because of the case of beer and the brown water and cigars at the Pete Navy House. But you have no idea how much it means to have you here today. Thank you is inadequate. Seriously though, I do hope you will all come over. Bring your plastic cups and I'll see you there. To my family, to my mom and dad, thank you for the example you set. I would not be here today were it not for you. I always wanted to make you proud. You've inspired and motivated me. To my brothers, Gary, Mark, and Mike. Gary, I know you're here, and thanks for believing in us so many years. Mark and Mike, you guys are incredible. Nothing I do, nothing I can do would ever repay you for you being here today. To my Aunt Bunny and Stephen and Janet and Tony and Danny, your presence over these years means more than you know, and thanks for being here as family today. To Rob and Lauren and Natalie, Nick and Amy and Eddie, Jeff and Elizabeth and Kylie and Hudson. I'll miss you guys telling me when I would take off, "Bye, Dad, I'll miss you and I love you." And now that I'm unemployed with no job, you'll probably see more of me than you care to. My principal goal in retirement, to be the best grandpa I could ever be. Our kids, they've made 28 moves with us. They've been incredible Army brats, making friends, breaking up, saying, "I'll see you later," again and again. They know more state history from the numerous state history classes they had to take, and each of them took a U.S. history class 4 or 5 times over. But they've been supportive and worthy of the love of our country for their own sacrifice as well. Rob, Nick, and Jeff, as Army brats and under the strangest of circumstances, you have become 3 amazing young men. You are smart and you're beautiful, but more importantly, you are kind and you are thoughtful and you're full of passion. I hope the way I played this game will motivate you. And to be your father is the greatest honor I could ever receive. Of all that I've done in my life, I am most proud to be your dad. I remember meeting Shelly, one lesson, Mary High. I was so cheap and such a bum. that when we got married, our honeymoon was the first move in an old sedan traveling across the country visiting sites along the way. But she was always there. Intuitively, she knew what was right and quietly did it every time. Her quiet courage gave me strength I would never have had. She was the perfect Army wife. Well, hun, we shared the thrills and we shared the dark moments. And for 41 years, you have not only been my wife and the mother of my children, you've been my best friend. You took on a role you didn't ask for, and you made it your own with grit and with grace and with style and good humor. You made our home a place that belongs to everyone, and a new generation knows what right looks like and sets its heights higher because it has you as a role model. You are the example of benevolence. The impact you have had on all of us, I can't think of the words to describe it. Without your love and bearing, I cannot imagine what my life would have been like. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this journey. Thank you for being my rock and the sacrifices you made daily. I told you I would never let you down, and I hope I held up my end of the bargain. We really are both retiring today, so congratulations, Shelly, Caslen, and Caslen. People would ask me what it took, and the only response I can think of is that the secret is in the dirt. I did not want anyone to outgrit me, or out-persevere me, or out-discipline me. The sheer concentration to go out and pursue a dream is not for everyone, but it was for me. Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, working for the Lord." There were hard times and there were low times, but I know I leave falling short of that mark. But the journey was a reward. People will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they'll never forget what price they had to pay for the success that they achieved. And as I look back on my career, I have no regrets. Another of my favorite verses, 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept my faith. I can at least look myself in the mirror knowing the honor of fighting the good fight. And quite frankly, the end of my Army career is the beginning of something I have yet to discover. And I also want to thank the American people and this nation for the privilege of serving. I'm so proud to be an American, and so proud to be an American soldier. Our nation has seen war and has seen peace, and it has seen hope in the path to a better world. And we have seen West Point graduates leading the way to a better world. What makes this country so special are not our accomplishments, but how we bounce back from adversity, how we beat back our fears, how we soldier through disappointment and trial. Really, these are the hallmarks of a great people. We talk about resilience of our troops and our families, and they have carried the best of us and this country into battle. They are magnificent, and they'll never let us down. To close out, let me just say I'm so glad that the President has nominated General Darrell Williams to be your next superintendent. I've known him since he was a cadet. The President could not have nominated a better leader. If he is confirmed by the Senate, he will be a brilliant superintendent and a breath of fresh air. And finally, let me just say that the freedoms and privileges that Americans enjoy today are a direct result of those who have sacrificed to defend this country. To the men and women of West Point and to the Corps of Cadets, you have all served this institution and your nation with honor. You do your part every day to persevere and to uphold the values and greatness of West Point and of our nation and of the American people. As our former Commander-in-Chief said of each of you in your generation, long after they are laid to rest, when the fighting has finished and our nation has endured, when today's servicemen and women are veterans and their children have grown, it will be said of this generation that they believed under the most trying of tests. They believed in perseverance, not just when it was easy, but when it was hard. That they paid the price and bore the burden to secure this nation. And they stood up for the values that lives in the hearts of all free people. This generation, these cadets, this Corps of Cadets that is now blessed to serve, will do their duty and will ensure our nation remains strong. I have served 43 years, 17 days in a wake-up. I never wanted this day to come, but it comes. It comes for all of us. But this hour, my last hour in uniform, my heart is filled with gratitude and love and thanks for the blessings of family and of friends, and above all the blessings of being a citizen of this great nation that God has blessed, and the pride of being called an American. And I thank God for sustaining me these 43 years, and I pray He will keep us all strong. I cannot conceive that God has granted any man a richer, more satisfying life than mine. To Him be all the glory and honor and power. To all of you, thank you for coming today. I have loved every single day. It is hard to leave, but it is made easier by your presence. To all who will continue to serve after I depart, I only ask one thing: make it matter. Thank you all very much. Go Army, beat Navy. Supe Daddy out.
And remain standing for the playing of the official Army song, The Army Goes Rolling Along.
Almighty God and Father of the universe, I use the sentiments of the farewell address of the father of our country, George Washington, for this final lesson upon General Caslen, who for so many of us, in so many ways, has been a father to us. God, you know General Caslen is not one to have ever deliberately done wrong in the performance of his duties. But neither is he so proud to doubt that he may have committed some errors. However, his country and his army, after 43 years of his life dedicated to their service, with upright zeal and unflinching character, will overlook any missteps. As the scripture says, every man shall sit under their own vine and fig tree. Now, along with his fellow citizens, he will savor the sweet enjoyment of a free country filled with benign laws that he has defended all these years. And with Shelly by his side, and his children and grandchildren in front of him, he will undoubtedly call to mind and continue to guide the young people of this nation, the ever-favored object of his heart. Tens of thousands of whom, due to his leadership, now share the same flame of love that burns in his own heart for duty, honor, country. And so, Father God, I ask you to bless General Caslen and his family one last time. Amen.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Army Song. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the ceremony. Lieutenant General and Mrs. Caslen invite you to attend the reception downstairs in Crest Hall, where a receiving line will form in 10 minutes. As you depart, the West Point Band will perform Army Strong in honor of the Caslen family. Thank you for attending today's ceremony, and enjoy your weekend.
Gen Kraetzer for Sons of American Legion Radio. Very proud on behalf of the 4 million members of the American Legion, Women's Auxiliary, and our group of 350,000 members of the Sons of American Legion to bring you today's retirement ceremony and relinquishing of the flag of West Point. by Lieutenant General Robert Caslen, retiring today after 43 years of service. Mentioned today, 42 months in combat, longer than World War II, and 28 moves across the country. I know my mother talked about her 17 moves as an Army wife. General Caslen's wife, Shelly, was recognized with a Distinguished Service Award from the United States Army. Very well deserved, and General Caslen was decorated with a Distinguished Service Award as well. Very large turnout here in Eisenhower Hall in the ballroom, and well deserved. The music from the West Point Band, of course, the introductory remarks by the Chief of Staff of the United States Army, General Milley, his typical style. Great humor, but then very serious and purposeful commentary and tribute to General Caslen. Hey, I'd just like to take a second to thank our sponsors who help us bring events during the course of the year. And it's one of our first broadcasts of a live event. And we're very pleased to work with the Academy on this. But I want to thank sponsors, the Westchester Bank, do a lot of work for veterans. The New York Yankees, who honored General Caslen by allowing to throw out the first pitch last Saturday at Yankee Stadium. And RallyPoint.com, the 1.5 million members of RallyPoint.com, served America, our new partner. And then also Facina Marketing Group in Danbury, the best in digital marketing. And our local sponsors in White Plains, New York, the Lee Kaufman at the White Plains Bake Shop, great West Point fan, and Tommy at Gedney Auto Services got our car ready last night so we could get up here today. And then also down in Harrison, New York, the Westchester Chiropractic and Wellness, Dr. Richard Davidson takes care of athletes, some of the best in the world, and also everybody else like us when we have aches and pains, great guy. And at Pro Travel in Harrison, Marlene Tholick, we appreciate all of her support. And she can get you out to the Oklahoma game. We're going to have a trip out to the Oklahoma game in September. Looking forward to that one. Then I got to thank all members of the American Legion and taking care of veterans 24/7. Just worked on getting the new health care bill done for veterans, the Mission Act, and are looking to take care of veterans every day, 24/7. And look them up on the website. Any information you need, legion.org. So I want to thank our producer today. That is Richard Miller, came up from WVOX to help us out. And again, I want to thank everybody at the Public Affairs Office staff of the United States Military Academy, and a great job by the West Point Band. We had their tribute to the Army Strong at the end of our recording today. So I want to thank our listeners and viewers, a couple of friends coming in, and we thank you for your service to all the veterans listening, and comments appreciated. And if you want to be part of our broadcast next year, just give us a call. We're certainly looking for more partners so we can do more to tell the story of West Point, Army's football, the U.S. Army, and the U.S. military. So for Sons of the American Legion Radio at the United States Military Academy, this is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio.